My name is Jessica Sullivan. I'm 19 years old. I was a student in Sullivan Secondary School, Cantor, County Cork. Most recently, I completed my Leaving Cert in June 2021. This year, I'll be attending NUI Galway, where I'll be studying engineering. I have to say, I don't think I would be going down this path of a future in STEM if it wasn't for being exposed to the subject of technology. I laugh now thinking back on first year, being so intimidated by all the computers and machinery. Impressed yet mainly shocked by the brilliant standard of the projects surrounding me and the standards set for me. Uncertain of how I was ever expected to not only manufacture but also create and design a project to these standards. If someone had told 13-year-old me that not only would I have studied technology all the way up to my Leaving Cert, but that it would also become one of my favourite subjects, I not only would have been amazed, but very intrigued to see if I would still have all 10 of my fingers after using the scroll saw for 6 years. Miraculously, I still do. I think the reason for not immediately falling in love with technology was because of the fear of the unknown. I, like the majority of people, had no experience in any aspect of the subject before entering in first year. Technology isn't like other subjects. There isn't just a book with all the answers to any questions you may have. Technology, as I learned, is about learning by doing, practice, and not fearing asking for help. For my junior cert, I would have said that SolidWorks was my worst enemy. I spent many a class tweaking and editing parts and joints, and many more classes querying Mr. Crotty and asking for his help and his advice. The best day was when I finally got all the parts onto the laser sheet and got them cut on the laser cutter. It was done. Until 2 years later, when I was in 6th year, when I was 100% confident in my SolidWorks skills, only to introduce the joys of designing a 3D part. That is what I think is the beauty of a subject like technology. Even when you've mastered one aspect, there's always more areas that you can learn and improve on. Over the years, whenever someone would ask me what subjects I was studying in school, I would always list my subjects and then finally come to technology. Then the dreaded question of what technology would be asked. Out of sheer ignorance, I would just respond with, oh, it's like metalwork or woodwork or another practical subject just with plastics. Thinking back now, I definitely did not give the subject enough credit. There's so many more layers and so many more levels than simply working with plastics. There's brainstorming with sketches, there's designing with SolidWorks, programming with Circuit Wizard, and then manufacturing in the Creative Zone, but to name a few. And this is all from a brief. And I think the brief as well gives the subject an extra something. The brief is so wide and it deals with real world issues and you have to give real world solutions. I think that was especially evident in this year's brief, where we were asked to design a project that would benefit some aspect of exploration. I decided to choose marine transportation. And then from my research, I discovered how important it was on our daily lives.
The solar sailor system, the future of green energy in marine transportation. Located on the side of the circuit box are 4 processing components. The main being the on-off switch, as it controls the entire circuit board. When switched on, it activates the solar panel. We see here it was in the home position to start with. The solar panel was programmed to be sun-seeking. Thus, the solar panel positions itself to get the optimal sunlight using the LDRs. For example, when LDR 2 and 3 are covered, it faces LDR 1 to get the optimal sunlight there. And again, when LDR 1 and 3 are covered, it positions itself at LDR 2. The solar panel is connected to the Genie 18 board located in the circuit box and is then connected to the charging sockets located on the side of the circuit box. To activate the output, we use the boat located on the left-hand side, which contains a printed board and a supercapacitor for storage. One simply pulls out the charging cables located at the rear and plugs them into said charging socket located on the circuit box. Red to red, black to black. Then, simply by switching the SPDT switch located at the front of the boat from the off position to on, it activates the propellers located at the rear of the boat. Another output of my project is the use of LEDs. By pushing the push to make switch, it activates 2 bright lights which shine upon the lighthouse. And finally, the lighthouse. Just like in my boat, I again used a printed board and a supercapacitor for storage. To release this energy, one simply pushes the SPDT switch to on, and when a force, such as wind, pushes the turbine, it activates the light located above the lighthouse.
If you were to ask me last September what I was most stressed about with this subject, I would have said learning the theory for the written exam. Because in most classrooms, we learn by sitting down and watching a teacher write on a whiteboard and tell us what we need to know, or by going home in the evenings and learning reams and reams of answers taken from a marking scheme only to blurt them out in the exam. But in technology, that's very different. We are always subconsciously learning. We are learning whilst manufacturing our projects. We are learning by doing and by seeing. And yes, they're the typical PowerPoints with the basics that we need to know. But for example, I understand why a resistor goes into circuit board and why it goes where by designing it on Circuit Wizard, printing it, soldering it, and then testing it. Mr. Crotty always takes pride in the fact that the state exams never repeat a question in the Leaving Cert Technology written exam. And yes, that is a great reputation for the state exams, but it wasn't so great for a Leaving Cert Technology student like myself, who wanted to be able to pass their written exam. And yet last September, it was a very pleasant surprise when I opened my papers to discover how many questions I understood and knew the answers to. And yes, I could accredit this knowledge and understanding to rereading the numerous PowerPoints multiple times before my exam. But there was also questions on things I had never read about. Only things I had used and done. Even if there was a question on a process or material that I didn't use, a fellow classmate of mine could have. And through conversing with them, I knew the pros and the cons. And they knew the pros and the cons of elements of my project as well. I think it was a great benefit to be able to converse within class, that we weren't always just stuck sitting at a desk. We were able to look at other people's projects, discuss them, ask for advice on our own, and maybe even give opinions on theirs. In a busy setting such as the technology classroom, it would be very easy to become overwhelmed or disheartened if something went wrong in our project and we weren't able to discuss it with our fellow classmates. If we were made sit in silence and work it out for ourselves like in any other classroom. I think this is a great help within the technology classroom. To not only the progression of our projects, but to also self-growth. To not have the fear to ask for help, as we all know there won't always be a teacher there to hold our hand and help us along the way. And yet, Mr. Crotty always had an open door policy. He would even be there before and after school to lend a helping hand and to listen to any questions or queries we may have had, giving great advice, an expert insight, and his honest opinion. Through technology, we learned many new skills. The obvious being how to draw isometric sketches, how to use SolidWorks and CAD and CAM, how to solder a circuit board, and sometimes even make it work, but to name a few. But there's also more important skills that we learned that'll stay with us for the rest of our lives. How to follow deadlines, how to be strict with our time management, and how to make up for time when it's lost chatting with our friends. Many memories were made in the technology, some good, some bad. I'll never forget the heartbreak I felt one day when I got a bit too confident with a pillar drill and broke a piece of my nearly finished project in two. Or the time that the printer stopped working a few days before our projects and portfolios were due, and the tension could have been cut with a knife. And frankly, if I never see another piece of vinyl decal, it'll be too soon. But they come nowhere near to the joyous moments. When all your parts in SolidWorks would mate together perfectly and it would be time to export them to the 3D printer or the laser cutter. Or when you would test your circuit board and the LED would light up first time. Or on a rare occasion when Mr. Crotty would give you the nod of approval when admiring your project. A few weeks ago when I opened my Leaving Cert results, I was absolutely over the moon to see that I received the high mark of a H1 in technology. It was a great way to finish my 6 years with technology and a great confidence boost for the next stage of my life with engineering. If I was to give advice to first year me or to any first year girls considering technology, it would be to have confidence in yourself in the subject and to not be afraid to ask questions. And also back everything up on your computer and finish your sketches on time.